worship leading is it definitely comes from an authentic place. It's not just something that's contrived, but lots of hours spent in it. Even as we were practicing beforehand, it was raining, the clouds were everywhere, and all of a sudden we saw this like pink hue outside coming through, and we said, we're going to stop worship practice for a moment. And we went outside, and we saw this gorgeous sunset, and Candy led us in just a course of, light of the world, right? Here I am to worship, right? Oh, no, I was getting there. And then we all go back inside, right? Because we all go back inside after looking at the sunset. And Zachary says, hey, there's a nice rainbow outside. And we're like, okay, we're going to go back outside again. And it was probably one of the best rainbows I've ever seen. It was end to end. You could see almost 3 rainbows with all the layers of it. And it's just a moment where we could see the beauty of God's creation and the light shining through. Because that's how rainbows actually shine, right? It's not just the fact that there's light. It's the fact that there's light that shines against darkness. There's a backdrop, right? Part of why the rainbow was where it was is because the sun was over here across the cloudy sky. And when the clouds went away, so did the rainbow. And I think that's a beautiful picture for us, how the light is supposed to get to us, how it's supposed to actually shine, is in contrast to our dark world. I appreciate the world that we live in. The light bulb was only made about 150 years ago, if that's hard to believe. Well, I should say not the light bulb, but Thomas Edison's version of it, where the filament could actually produce light as opposed to like 90% heat. Can you imagine a world without light bulbs? Like, if I blow out this candle for you, nobody would notice. I turn off one of these light switches, and everyone's going to notice. A candle gives about 15 lumens, 15 very small. Whereas one of the new LED, I can't call it fluorescent tube because it's an LED, is going to produce 4,200 just for one of them. We're going to put 4 back there and replace them. And don't even get me started about the greatest light, the sun, which is about 38 octillion lumens. It's one of those so large a number it ceases to matter. But we're here to talk about a different sun, the Son of God, pun intended, and the light that he is into our world. So often we go to the Gospel of Luke because it gives the historical account, or even if we go to Matthew to give the brief account that he gives. But I appreciate John's account here, kind of appreciated when it comes to Jesus, the light, come into our world. So let me read the first opening of John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. If you were a Jew listening to John writing this, it would be easy to catch all the parallels. Just by starting with the words, in the beginning, you're hearing creation accounts. And if that wasn't enough, he's explicit and says that through the word all things were made. The fact that he calls Jesus the Word here could also harken back to the fact that when God made the world, it was through his words. It said, let there be light, and there was light. And through the rest of the 6 days, whatever God said, it happened. But also with the Word, if you were a Greek during this time listening it, this would have blown your mind. This would have been something profound, because the logos in Greek, the word literally, was this concept of wisdom, or this concept of the divine logic, right? The highest realm that you could be in during that time was a philosopher, somebody who used logic and reason to know the divine things of God that are from above. Because everything that's physical is evil according to their view, right? Gnosticism. But the divine, the reason, that was something that was perfect and untouched. And so the fact that John has the audacity in their mind to call Jesus the Word, that means that he is the divine wisdom of God. In fact, the reason is like a bridge, right? When we use logic and reason, it's like a bridge to the divine world of what God's reality is. The fact that he is ultimate truth. We see this later when John calls Jesus the true light, as opposed to other lights that cloud our vision or make things look in a different way than they should. That Jesus was the true light. And so from this we gather that John is not mincing words. Jesus is the divine light come into the world. He is equal with God in creation, that he was not a created being, but that he was part of the creation. That he was distinct from God, just kind of like our words are distinct from us. But what's interesting about our words, when I talk, are my words me? They're kind of me, but they're also very distinct from me. They're separate, yet intrinsically linked. And it shows the nature of Christ, while distinct from God, co-equally God. And that he is the true revelation, that when you look at Christ, you see God. Something that was previously invisible has now become visible. You see this later in verse 18 of the chapter where it talks about this light, who is God, he's very explicit, was also made the invisible God visible. Nobody has ever seen God, and you hear this from John's other writings. But when you look at Christ and his life and his example, that's what God looks like, because he is God. Maybe it's cheating, but that is what John's point is, that when you see this, this is what you were created for. This is what life under God's realm was supposed to look like. And so I think when I come to this text, the light is only beautiful because there's a contrast of this dark world. Where is your darkness? Whether that's the sin that reigns in our lives, whether that's bitterness or there's envy or anger, when we come up with those emotions, that's where the light needs to actually shine the brightest. Think about it this way. If you live your life, life's good, got plenty of money, and you're a happy person, nobody goes, wow, that's a great example. Or like, they're so happy all the time. Well, of course they are happy because they have nice property, food every day. But what happens when those things are stripped away, and yet there's joy, and yet there's life and light? That is when the contrast shows the beauty of what Christ has come into the world to do, to show his divine light to reflect for us. Because he gets to this now, he's not just our light, because if Jesus was purely just the light, it would just be as good as the Old Testament law to show us that we're all sinners and we're all left in darkness. But no, John doesn't start there. He says in verse 4 that this light was the life of men, that it didn't just produce and show us our sin, but that it produced life in us. I think to the life of Jesus, with all the miracles that he did, how many of those miracles were to give life or to show to benefit of other people? He could have done many things to prove his divinity. He could have moved mountains, shaken the world, but he chose to heal people. In fact, I asked ChatGPT to tell me all of the ways in which Christ helped people. And here's what its response was. If helped people means directly benefited humans, yes, almost all of Jesus' miracles did. Most miracles clearly helped people in obvious ways. Healings, blind, lame, lepers, paralytics, hemorrhaging women, etc. Exorcisms, freeing people from demonic oppression. Yes, that's what that is. Provision, feeding the 5,000 and 4,000. Resurrections, Lazarus, Jairus' daughter, widow's son. Protection, calming the storm. I laugh that it includes walking on water here because I don't know if that's directly helping people, but we'll go with it. Restoration, cleansing lepers, restoring speech. It's repeating itself. Anyway, it gets to the end. If you list the commonly counted 35 to 37 recorded miracles, all but one clearly help people in a direct and tangible way. And I think that's revealing of Christ's ministry, that he didn't just come to prove that he was God, but he actually came to restore physical life as a picture to the spiritual life that he wants to restore in you, the restoration of our souls through his death on the cross. And I don't even think it includes the resurrection from the dead because, well, some might argue that that's not helping people. I think that is the greatest help to mankind that's ever happened. And Jesus' life and light is not just something that he possesses, but it's something that's given to us. John will later say in his gospel that he came to give us life and to give us life abundantly. And this abundant life isn't the plush, cushy kind of life, but it defines what that life is. It's showing that it's a life that in the contrast of this dark world shows joy and hope regardless of circumstances. And that when you face your darkness, tomorrow we come to Christmas. Everyone wants Christmas to be perfect, right? Nobody wants to talk about politics or religion, right? We try to do everything we can to make Christmas the nice, perfect thing, right? I mean, if you want to set off a grenade in your household, you just throw out, right? You know what to say to aggravate your in-laws, right? But part of the joy that Christ gives is that there's an abundant life that isn't just based on circumstances or what things we're not supposed to say, but that he came to make us truly live. One of my favorite songs is by the band Reliant K called I Celebrate the Day. In it he says, to look back and think that this baby, Jesus, would one day save me, and hope that what you did, that you were born so I might really live. And this life is something that's not just, again, push like these niceties. It's going to become in the face of adversity, whatever that might look like for you. So I ask again, where is your darkness and where is the light need to reveal? And that light might need to reveal some ugly things in me and how I don't respond to them. But the joy of Christ is that this light, represented by the candle, come into the world isn't just a 15 lumen candle, but it's a blazing sun that's changed our life to set the world ablaze. And so I ask you, receive Christ. Recognize the darkness in us and that his example has come to bring us true life.